All right. Welcome, everybody. Hey, Frederick Rourke, already in the chat. Uh, I'm here with, as promised, Jacob Fleming, the creator of, get that in front of the camera, people see it, Shadow of the Silveraxe, Shadow of Tower Silveraxe, which if you follow my channel at all, I've spent about, I don't know, the last 6 hours of streaming going through practically page by page through it, and it's been amazing. One thing I want to mention, I don't know if you could see it on your side there, Jacob, but I do have chat coming in, and I can overlay them on the video. I don't know on the guest. Do you have the chat panel also that you can see
I
directly?
do, yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. So,
Thank you for having
um,
me.
oh
Chat.
no, it's thanks for coming on super short notice. I'm really excited to talk about Shadow of Silveraxe. Shadow of Tower Silveraxe.
It's
Uh,
it
I
doesn't quite
guess
roll off the tongue.
but it's a very distinctive name.
Yes.
Without being too like, it doesn't speak like it's super, I don't know, metal or kind of, gonzo. It's sort of, I don't want to say generic, but it can fit in a lot of different fantasy campaigns, but it has a name that if you say like, hey, have you played Silveraxe or Shadow, have you read, Tower Silveraxe, right? It's something that people will remember. And I had that trouble a lot because my channel, even though I thought it was sort of a clever name at the time, Hex Press, I get stuff like if I ever search for myself or anything like that, I get tons of stuff about people using like hex weights for pressing, because there's like hex workout, and like it's like I'm starting to think like I should have picked a name that I could I could more easily search. But Silveraxe definitely stands out. So I guess first things first, like what was the where did the idea come from for this adventure, and what was the genesis of it all?
So yeah, during COVID or before COVID, my home game, we had been playing in a like a setting campaign world of my own that I had gone through on Hexographer and put together, and I mapped out this. It wasn't necessarily an entire like continent, but maybe like a small country's worth of content. And then after lockdown and people were not comfortable playing in person, I was kind of like prepping for myself, and I decided I just wanted to prep content in my little campaign world, even if the players were never going to see it. I was just like, let's start a project, and I just picked a point on the map that looked interesting, and I started kind of fleshing out that area. And I think I started this around October, November, and then as it was actually the project was a lot larger in scope, but then I kind of narrowed it down until I saw that there was a event in February, which was Zine Quest. I decided I wanted to take my content and turn it into like a little adventure. So I just kind of threw myself into it. And
Nice. Had your players been here yet, or was this somewhere that's kind of in your game, kind of
it
off to
was
the
it
side?
was unlikely that they were going to go there, at least on the trajectory they had started. I started with Village of Hamlet and kind of just placed it in there. So they played through Village of Hamlet, and I wanted the rest of the content that I was creating from scratch to feel like it belonged in Greyhawk. So I kind of kept it old school in that sense, where it was, like you said, sort of generic in a way, but like it could be semi-original, but still feeling of an era before.
Oh yeah, and I felt like it definitely has that sort of the same kind of feel you get in Keeping the Borderlands or Isle of Dread, in which you have stuff going on, but the layout is very much that kind of sandbox where like you know that something's happening somewhere in the map. Obviously, as the GM, you know it's happening at the tower or whatever, and that's spreading out, but you can kind of play in that sandbox however you like, and it's very neutral in terms of how the events will develop.
Exactly. And that's another thing I wanted to keep in mind when I was creating the project is whenever I take like a module, I change a lot of things. And I figured players playing in with my book would also just change a lot of things. If it didn't work for their players, they might like adapt it to their own home game.
Yeah, and I think it's very easy to, and I noticed, and I don't know if it was purposeful, but I noticed, I think at one point there was you run into a couple guys who are just from the city, capital C, and I thought like that will fit because anybody could just they don't have to think about renaming it. It's just like, oh, the city, and whichever the closest city that people
Exactly.
happen to put it on in their map,
Yeah.
will fit. That was kind of clever. I really like the artwork you did.
Oh,
I
thank you.
commented on it a bunch. I mean, not just the actual literal pieces of art, but also your mapping style. I think is great because it really. I mean, they're not. I think they're very pretty, but I feel like what sticks out for me is just how usable they are. And I think particularly with a lot of stuff you see in the kind of Zine Quest designs and the OSR stuff, people tend to go really over the top in the presentation, but in a way that ends up when you actually try to use it, tends to, you're trying to figure out what the heck's going on in these maps. Boy, it's beautiful to look at, but I can't actually play it. Whereas I feel like these have a very austere beauty that puts the functionality kind of topmost.
And that's what I liked about the old TSR modules, is it was graph paper, really easy to read maps. Most of the time they were easy to read. But yeah, the hand-drawn stuff is really fun to look at, but it is hard to use at the table.
Yeah, I think there are ways to do it. Like the Dyson logos kind of style, I feel like it's pretty easy. But, there can just be so many flourishes and things that you just end up being confused as to what's going on, where I don't feel like there was any of the maps where I didn't, you couldn't tell what something was going to be. Like sometimes some of the symbols I forget, but I did like that you had that in the back of your book also in the symbology, which I think is helpful because even though I've been playing this game for a ton of years, I always forget, like, is the square with the X mark? Is that the trap, or is that the secret door? Like, is that like a door in the floor? Like, I always got to end up having to look up a map somewhere. Do you have your players, since you started doing this, since you put on Zine Quest, have you run your players through it? Did you do it as far as testing?
I run a test group online of some other friends from all over the U.S. to play through it. My home group has still not gotten there, and I don't want to force them over that to play in my content, but we'll get there if they do.
You wake up teleported into
yeah, but I've definitely run some players through, and I learned early on in the playtesting that it was pretty lethal.
What area tended to get folks the most?
Well, it was bad dice rolls, but just some random encounter with wolves. Like, one of the players was just killed outright before we even got to one of the dungeons. So I was like, okay, well,
that's going to happen though,
Yeah, maybe level 1's probably not the way to start, but somewhere.
Well, I noticed you put low to mid. So where do you think is the sweet spot if you're bringing a new party over here?
Playing in old school essentials, probably 2 is probably doable if you have a good number of folks and if they bring in hirelings, but probably 3 if you got 4 players. Should be okay, and still find it to be challenging.
Where was there anything that you had to, when you went through the playtesting, that you, besides just the lethality of things that you decided you had to kind of move around or tweak that they ran into?
Certainly some of the creatures. Like, I had I can't remember the name of it. It's like a mix between a troll and a ghoul. So it has paralyzation and it's also regenerating. I can't remember the name of that creature, but I had one in the first dungeon, and I was like, that'll be a great monster. And it was a total party kill on the first go. So it was like, well, I'll just change that to something. I think I just changed it to a skeleton.
Did once they kind of got their groove, did they get all the, what was the trajectory? Did you play up the sort of Silveraxe conspiracy, or how did it go from a kind of a
no narrative? They hadn't picked up on that quite yet. They didn't get far enough to pick up on that overarching mystery.
So what they ended up doing?
They were, I think the players that I play tested with were more like, I just want to get the treasure and get out and maybe leave this area before too long.
I got you. So, but did you just kind of guide them through different areas, or did you just kind of
I let them I showed them the player map and kind of let them pick a direction.
Yeah, it took me forever to realize that was the player map. I just kept looking and I'm like, why are some of the trails missing? And then I suddenly just looked up in the corner. I think it was actually my last stream. I'm like, oh yeah, it says player map. They're now that makes more sense, because I kept thinking, why are the trails on one side of the map and then they disappear on the other side? And I was like, okay, that makes a heck of a lot more sense. The only thing I'll say about that, and it's obviously just a thing, is I would never give my players maps with this much technical detail on it. Like Hexes, I always give them very much more of the sort of homemade style map, because I don't want them to be very precise with figuring out where locations are. But that's just me. But I also don't play in the kind of Roll20 universe where people have constant access to pixel perfect representations of the terrain.
Exactly, and that was actually the inception of the player map. It was a suggestion from one of the backers on Kickstarter. They thought it would be a pretty neat idea, and I agreed. It was a people seem to like the player's map. So
Oh, I mean, it's beautiful, right? And it's certainly like I could feel this for if you know, I think I remember the original kind of West Marches idea, right? Was that there was sort of a communal map. I think in the original idea, what it was like, it was sort of carved into the table in the tavern or something, and everybody could add their own stuff to it. And having a prop like that, which you could potentially, if you're running an open style table, where you know you could just at the beginning unfurl the map or unfold it, and then people could add their marks to it, is great. I mean, and it's beautiful too. I like all the contour marks, and it's not overly cluttered up with a bunch of stuff. I like the simple symbology. Did you create that yourself? Did you use some kind of like EarthGIS map kind of thing for it, or how?
I referenced other actual trail maps I had, but it took me a long time to do that map, and I probably won't repeat that process again, because it was a lot of like in Illustrator moving every little contour line around to make it like, okay, that's how rivers or erosion work. So I tried to make it look realistic.
Oh, you really got it. So you were trying to stay on the good side of like the cartography subreddits that will just go nutso on people if they're if rivers are joining or someone seems to be off, they just go, you know.
Yeah, some YouTubers or other folks that I look up to, they are very critical of actual geography. So I was like, I gotta be in there.
Yeah, I mean, the point, you know, I'm always of two minds about that, because I think one of my old hex crawl videos, I had a river and I was drawing it as I was talking about it, you know, and I ended up making kind of a join, and I got some comments, you know, about that. But it's the same time, it's like the map that started the whole mapping thing. I mean, I guess maybe you have the Howard kind of stuff from Conan, but really, you know, Tolkien. Those maps have tons of things that would not fly in today's hyper thing. Like Mordor is basically a 3-sided box of mountains, right? And if I put that on my map, and put it up there, I would get nothing but flack about, oh, that's not how mountains work. Mountains should follow the coast. Da, 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 da. It's like, you know, nobody cared. Nobody in the 50s or even now, like, just slammed the Fellowship of the Ring shut because they went to look at the map at the back of the book and thought those mountains don't make any sense. You know, I'm out. But you know, I get it. But it is beautiful. What was your inspiration for kind of the Silveraxe? I don't want to say. I kind of think I always think of it as a conspiracy. I guess it's a conspiracy realized, right? Because he wants to become sort of a. Did he now? The backstory? He doesn't know he's going to become a shade, right? What is his original? What does he think is going to happen when he says he starts that ritual?
He doesn't really know. The character Silveraxe is just guided by greed. So most of his decisions are just based on, you know, what can I get out of this in value wise.
Gotcha. Oh, we got a question from Direct Sun. Hey, Direct Sun. One he says, excellent art. Would you say that your drawings guide the adventure or the other way around? And they love the crab spiders. Who doesn't love crab spiders?
I love the crab spiders too. It was definitely a lot of things I would draw out and then get inspired for how I was going to take the adventure or what I was going to do with certain dungeons. But certain rooms, I would think about what was happening in the room, and then I would make some like filler art based on what might happen in the in that.
What do they call that? Your head canon? What your
head canon is? Yeah, and throughout the book, I had some characters that I had, you know, like they appeared in multiple pieces of art, and they kept showing up, and so I gave them kind of personalities, and then figured how would these, if they were player characters, how would they react to certain situations.
Did your characters ever interact with the Golthak, and if so, how did that go? No, they didn't make it over there.
It never showed up. They never had the opportunity to.
Because they seem really interesting, but they're also on a part of the map, I think, and I forget where if they show up in some of the random encounters. But I feel like they're one of those, which I guess could be, you know, good or bad, right? It's kind of a cool thing if you're running an open table and you're in this area a lot. It's almost like that interesting. It's only going to happen once in a blue moon when you'll see these reclusive creatures out there that have their own kind of thing going on. But maybe on the other hand, it's a bit of a loss because they have kind of an interesting story, an interesting thing going on, but they're also in a part of the map that you could very well not get to, you know, at all.
entirely possible. Or a DM could just say, you know what, I want them to encounter them, so maybe they plan that for their session is to run into Pell or just one of the other random hunting parties.
Yeah, I think one of the ideas I had, that I might mess around with if I got around to running this would be to, because I really like that I like the idea of this, that priestess, I forget her name, who is really trying to to push her people towards a very, I don't know, exterminating, you want to eliminate all others, that if she would try to make some kind of deal with Silveraxe, because Silveraxe's goals and hers are somewhat aligned in just a general way, in that he is trying to make everybody undead, and at least in the short term, that's good for her because it is getting rid of everybody else. Of course, at some point, they're going to figure out, well, what happens when I'm the only people left. But I could see a short term, and so I had this concept of, you have the dwarves, you have the elves, and then at some point, word is traveling out about what Silveraxe is doing, and then she's trying to insert herself and maybe get rid of the dwarves in the same motion. So doing some deal with Silveraxe to both prevent the dwarves from helping the elves, who are much closer to the, where Silveraxe is, and sort of getting rid of them in the same process. I mean, I felt like during the stream that was coming, all these really kind of neat things you can do. Have you gotten feedback from different people who have run as far as how they've done it?
I haven't gotten any DMs who've told me they've introduced political intrigue, but man, that would be a really fun idea. I do like that it's possible. You could have that. Everybody has a different motivation, so it would guide them into creating all these different situations.
Totally. And I kind of had this idea that maybe whatever evil deity that Silveraxe had, whatever power that Silveraxe had, sort of with that ritual either awakened or tapped into, was also the one that there was some, like, maybe it was the same force operating on different paths, reaching out to Silveraxe in this way and reaching out to Golthak in this other way. And that would be another way to kind of bring them together in something, and give, if Pell joined the party, kind of give her something to do. Because it seems like if you just run it kind of as you wrote it, she really just could be just kind of a high-powered hireling, basically, or just a little bit of a better, because she doesn't really want anything. So it's like, oh, great, free. I can see my players like, ooh, free hireling.
Yeah. I was inspired by Kroll, and there was actually like a cycloptic being in that movie called Rel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I totally
love that character so much, and I was like, I basically just want to have Rel in my
man. My friends and I, we just, even now, I could probably call them up right now and talk about the Cyclops who sold their second eye for knowledge, and is fooled by only getting knowledge of their own death. I mean, that stuff was great, and he was a great character, and he had, I don't want to say he had an arc really, but I guess he did a little bit. He had that whole thing where he was kind of running from his own death, and then he decided at the end that no, he was going to help his friends and not just wait for it, but kind of, do something.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. I mean, I could start spend the rest of this thing talking about Kroll, but
Yeah. Oh, looks like we have another question.
We do. Nothing. Hey, nothing asks, did you have any experience in the industry before Silveraxe?
No, this is my first go at it, but I'm hooked now, and I have another one in the works that I'm planning on running for next year's Zine Quest.
Oh, nice. Is it playing? So is it going to be like this one, kind of based on your own?
It is going to take place in the same universe. I'm, without giving too much away, it is taking place in a different sort of landscape, and it will be a little bit smaller in scope in that it won't be like a huge sandbox hex crawl. It'll be probably like 4 dungeons at most. It won't be. There'll be trails, but there won't be like go anywhere you want.
Is there going to be a heavier emphasis on some kind of ongoing, mischief, or will it be like this one where it's sort of open-ended, kind of why the party's there?
Sort of open-ended in that you could plug this one into your ongoing campaign, where you can have like this just be something you could do on the way to whatever next thing you had planned.
Nice. I mean, I think there's always room for this, because everyone always needs material, and that's one thing I also appreciated about your approach here, is you really could, if you, for some reason, your party's in somewhere else of the world, that kind of, but you need something, you need a location, these are all very kind of self-contained. You can really just pull it in and just try to drop it and say, okay, you see off the trail or off the road, I want to say, I'm going to keep kind of singing your praises on the organization of this thing because I love that section at the top with the approaches because very often you don't kind of get that, and it's nice to be able to look at that and see like, okay, what do they see from that point where they may be aware of it, but they don't know necessarily what it is. Like, what do they see? What do they smell? Like, what does it look like as you're heading up to it, which can be sometimes challenging, right? Or you either forget about it. But I think it's nice to have that little grounding of, okay, this is in the hills, and I'll see it off. This is where it is off the trail, and it's like, oh, great, because the maps, as beautiful they are, it is a hex. It is, you're not zoomed in so close to know exactly how far things are away.
Yeah, you kind of have
from each other.
A description to warm your players up to, or entice them to bring them closer in.
Absolutely. Was there any particular story around how the actual Tower of Silveraxe is set up? It seems to have kind of 3 distinct layers, and I was curious about that because they are, in some ways, somewhat. Well, I guess the bottom 2 are somewhat related because you have that one creature whose lair is in sort of the caverns beneath the sort of arena torture area, and then above is kind of the normal tower. Was it just a matter of just trying to have a lot of different elements in it? Did you have some idea of sort of the past and kind of how they got these kind of fairly different looks and feels to these areas?
It was a lot of, I wanted it to have a lot of different elements, kind of like a multi-layered dungeon. The further you go, like you might run into something completely different, and it feels very different than what it was before. I didn't want it to be too disparate, but I definitely, I didn't want to explain the full history, or I didn't necessarily need to have the full history of the dungeon itself or the tower. The builders are really mysterious in that, like, even I don't fully know what their whole purpose was or where their whole moral code was.
They seem to be. I kept going back and forth whether I felt like they were sort of neutral or good or evil. It seems like they definitely had some sort of progression. Kind of. I mean, me reading into it, sort of some kind of. I guess what happens to lots of societies, like kind of a decadence, if not sort of evil, then just kind of so self-absorbed that they lose sight of kind of morality. I mean, that was the kind of the take that I got. But you do leave it fairly open-ended. It can kind of be, sort of however you want them to be.
Yeah, but they did die off, so that could be up to the DM's discretion as to why that was.
Do they exist elsewhere in your world? Have your players, your other parts of your home game, they run into the builders, or the builders kind of local to this area?
That was the first time I had introduced them to the world, but I haven't ruled out that it might exist elsewhere.
Nice, because there's the other thing it reminded me of. I mean, I know it's come up with different things like Star Trek. They had in Deep Space Nine, they introduced that kind of idea. I think I forget the shape changer people worked for or they were like the original one. I don't know. They had these ideas, some of these kind of ancients and these other, and like what is like in what is it? Game of Thrones had like not the Targaryens, but there was like the first men or something. I don't know. I always like these ideas of these kind of, mysterious. I mean, I guess it's kind of back to that whole kind of Tolkien thing of that the world was sort of more powerful in ancient times, and we're just scrabbling up the pieces, right? So that the builders are kind of larger, grander, and stronger than anybody who's around now. But as you said, for some reason they didn't make it.
I like how fantasy kind of does that in almost every single iteration. It's like the past was always, more beautiful and more grand, like you say, and then right now it's just kind of like the remnants, and there's always like a greater history.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does strike some people the wrong way, and I'm sure there's some things that are kind of culturally tied up in that, like, oh, the past is always better as for the future. Right. But yeah, I don't know. Something about it does appeal to me.
Yeah, and it seems like it's unanimous. It's ubiquitous in every single iteration. I'm not sure if that's just a cliche that needs to die, or if it's just, that's just part of the genre.
Yeah, I mean, I think some people are definitely working to do another one where the future, in a sense, the future is more, hopeful, maybe, as opposed to like, hey, people are. I guess that's kind of the sci-fi element of it, right? I mean, right. Some of the sci-fi is also you go out and find out, oh, there were older people who were out there, but now they're just space people, and instead of fantasy builders, they're space builders, and it's essentially the same kind of deal, but on a cosmic level, which maybe actually be more depressing in a sense than just on a particular world. That now it's the entire universe. someone had asked me. It was kind of funny. The on that lower level, so I guess maybe the first underground level of of the tower, where you have the creature and the sort of holding pens and the portcullis of the arena. Was there any particular way you envisioned that kind of running? Because their question was, well, what is the state of the portcullis? Is it because there was someone like, is it open? Is it closed? What's the creature comes out? Do they burst through the portcullis? And I thought it was really interesting because obviously it's left wide open, right? He had his idea of maybe having it half closed. I was like, well, maybe it's kind of stuck open, but maybe if a big creature were to slam into a wall or something, it could slide closed. But I'm curious if you had in your mind sort of what that was a setup for.
Thinking about like Return of the Jedi and the Ring.
Oh, okay, that's kind of what I had.
Yeah,
I thought.
Certainly, you could play at that. The Silveraxe or the undead now control the Rugodessa. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yes. Oh well, I don't know. Isn't it not yours? Because I had not heard that one before.
That's actually in the Old School Essentials rulebook. I think it's an older creature.
I don't know. I have to look it up.
Yeah, it's like a 10-legged spider thing.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. But yeah, that's the way I was picturing it, is like Luke Skywalker getting dumped off into the arena pit and then having to either battle it or,
Unfortunately, none of your party got down there, so we don't know if there was any interesting.
No. But I am eager to hear from playtesters if they do run that far.
Did you have other groups just totally run it? What do they call it? Like the kind of, I know there's a name for it. Like, I don't know. It's considered blind place where you literally hand it off to somebody, giving no. I just don't remember the technical term, but essentially you hand off the materials basically without any commentary or guidance, and then just see how they're able to do that. Were you able to do that with Silveraxe? Okay.
No, I haven't. That's definitely something. If I get a little bit of time, I'd like to try that with the next one.
There's definitely a name for it. I just can't remember, but it's the idea that, unlike say your home group where the players and you can kind of, maybe they know you and your own material, right? So in your mind, you might fill in stuff that your material might actually be lacking by handing it off to somebody who has no background, no whatever with you, that kind of they can't find stuff.
Exactly. Kind of stress testing it in a way,
right.
See if it holds up to like
see if it holds up. Yeah. And it's especially, I think the key is that you're not giving them anything, and they're not aware of you. So they can't say that, oh, well, I know that Jacob meant this, so I'm going to do that. Right. They're going to have to look at it and say, like, what do I do? Or like, oh, we got another comment from Direct Sun. People have said the adventure is vanilla in content. Can be easier for referees to add their own content and flair instead of removing weird organza elements they don't want. Is that intentional?
Absolutely. Yeah. I wanted to pull in the monsters directly from the Old School Essentials monster book, and I didn't. Not that I didn't want to create my own monsters, it's just that I didn't feel like I needed to, because there was so much content in there already that third-party creators can totally use and put in that.
And you have a couple of ones you put in there, right? Let's see, I'm looking at you have the Golthek.
Yeah, and
the corpse worm.
The corpse worms, which are
really nice and gross.
Since I put out this book, Gavin and Old School Essentials, they have like an advanced version of that, and they have included the rot grub in the new monster manual. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, not necessarily my own original, but it's kind of like a take on the rot grub from AD&D.
Yeah, I mean, they're those kind of creatures are always really cool. And they really make like death and sort of corpses and things kind of have that kind of ick factor that I think sometimes they lose, because in adventuring parties are totally just running around like looting corpses wherever they go. Like it doesn't, there's a little bit of, as a player and as a character, how it doesn't matter, well, they were dismembered, their guts are all hanging out, there are flies on it. It's all right, let's loot through their pockets, right? Like, and this is kind of brings back a little bit like, do I really want to do that? Why is this corpse still wriggling around even though it's got no head and its chest is cleaved open? Like, adds a little bit of that terror down. Sorry,
players are all deathly afraid of chests, even though like I've never really thrown mimics at them that often, but like, they're always thinking, okay, is the door a mimic? I need to test it. But yeah, corpses should also be just as dangerous.
Absolutely. I have never used mimics either, but yeah, people are definitely, oh, here we go. Let's see. Samuel Bondalila. That's who I had the question with me about the portcullis, by the way. Thanks for clarifying about the arena. Your module reminds me of B2 in all the best ways. So excited to run my friends through it.
I've never run Keep on the Borderlands. I've really always wanted to, and I've read through it, but I've never run it myself.
That's my experience actually with a lot of that stuff. I've always ended up doing my own kind of homebrew things, but I'll always like to read through them, pull things out of them. I'm actually sending my party to Keep on the Borderlands. It's kind of like the first time ever I'm sending. I'm not using the keep, so as usual, I'm not just plunking them over there, but I've put the Caves of Chaos kind of in my world. And I thought actually last night they were going to get there, but they actually changed their mind and decided to go back to Civilization to regroup. So the caves are still on hold. Right. I try to be clear with my players, and I assume, same with yours is, hey, I always tell them, don't feel like you have to go in a certain direction because you told me last week, or because, whatever. It's like you get new information, you guys have new discussions, and those discussions lead you to think that the better, wiser course of duty is to turn around and go the other way than do that. And so they turned around and said, like, yeah, I think we need more help and we need more stuff. But it's all good. It's all good from my kind of standpoint.
I love those curveballs that the players go. I used to be deathly afraid of that. Of like, I don't know how I'm going to improv if they go off the path that I've set for them. But now it's like kind of fun improving and letting them in different directions. I mean,
it's all about that kind of comfort level, which I think actually works better when you've done your own homebrew stuff because you kind of know.
Yeah. Totally.
Whereas if I was on the the B2 big map and they'd suddenly decide to go, we want to go off the map, I'd be like, I don't know what's outside this, whatever's off this border. Like, I literally don't know what's there. I was expecting you guys to go that way. Like, that's a lot scarier than I know. Okay, I know what's over here because I went through the process of drawing it out or generating it on a map or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I had a question and it just skipped out of my brain. Let me see if I can get through back here. I guess I could ask you, was there anything of this that you created that comes out of stuff that your party did, or NPCs that they knew, or sort of characters that they played? Is there any of your like home game just in terms of that kind of stuff inside of Silveraxe?
Yeah, I did include one of the three clan elders of the Dwarven town is one of my player characters. I just had her as a retired NPC, and now she's like one of the leaders of the clan.
Oh, nice. Does she know?
She does, yeah, and I gave her a free copy of the book.
Nice.
To thank her for letting me use her character.
Yeah, that's awesome. That kind of stuff. It's kind of like that. What was that movie, High Fidelity? Where they're all kind of they're watching what's her name, who's the singer, and she's singing, and they're all kind of imagining like if they were dating her or they were married to her, how they could end up in the liner notes or like end up in the lyrics. Yeah. And I feel like for an RPG player, like that same thing is maybe I'll end up in his next module. Like I can be like a town elder, or the village drunk will be one of my old characters. It's kind of that little dream to be sort of immortalized.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of old player characters that I want to turn into NPCs.
Heck, why not? I mean, that's like I would be lining up. Let me play in Jacob's game just so I can make an impression and get my guy in there.
Yeah.
Did you do the town maps? Because I know there's an online kind of town generator that will do similar.
That one it's based on that town generator, and then I turned it into a vector, and then I just manipulated the heck out of it, and then drew the river through it.
I really like them because they really, for me, they balance a nice line between being obviously they're nice to look at and giving you some kind of spatial awareness of things, but again, it's not getting into super details. I never feel like I feel like I don't run enough stuff. Maybe it's just a fault of my own style, but generally when people go to the town, I'm not giving them like turn by turn directions, from the tavern. You want to go to the blacksmith. Okay, You're going to turn left, go 100 feet, you're going to turn right. It's just like, okay, the blacksmith's over there. Mm-hmm. It's easy to find. You find it. So I don't find all those super detailed town or city maps useful because I don't end up doing things like I guess people must do, which is run chases or do other things where that may be important. But even then, like, no one knows the maps by heart anyway, and I don't know if anyone's handing them out. So even at that point, it usually comes down to make a roll or something and not let me physically walk through the directions to the town. But your maps, which definitely had that vibe, so I'm interesting that you kind of use that as your template. Give me enough kind of understanding where I can look at it, get something visual out of it, but not have a lot of extra detail that I'm not going to ever use. I don't think.
Yeah, it's like it's either on the west side or the east side of the river or the canal. What you were talking about with the giving directions, that reminded me of when I first started DMing and I was running Phandelver for a group, and I was like, okay, now you go down 100 paces, and then to the left is this, and just getting so like flummoxed by trying to stay accurate to the map. Oh man, this.
Yeah, I mean, I at this point, I just kind of say, well, you walk so far, and they're like, how long do we walk, or how far? And I'm like, I don't know. Were you using a tape measure? Like, how far do you? Like
a while. It's a little,
a little ways. You move a little ways. Like, unless you're telling me you got a tape measure out, or you're marking, paces out, and you got those surveyor tools like you see with the guys on the street with the laser pointers that are out doing this stuff. It's like you don't know, so I'm not going to worry. I'm not going to worry about it. I definitely like that. I don't know if it's the first time, but the one with the river through it, I guess that's the main town or the initial settlement town, Karn Buldar. I just really like that river that runs through. It has kind of a woodcut kind of vibe to it. I don't know if that was just intentional or not, but it's just really.
Yeah, I mean, the town map is sort of abstract, and I wanted the canal to kind of fit that vibe.
Yeah, it's cool, and it also kind of cuts right through your column, so it has a nice and like the dashed line for the road. The one thing, and I don't know if it's just because I was looking at the PDF one page at a time, but it seems like is that a design element? I guess I should just look in here because you have the dashed line on the first page of Karn Buldar, and it kind of, I feel like it leads to the dashed line. That's the road through the town.
Design element just to break up the page from the title. But
yeah, that's the way
generally goes that way, but for sure.
Yeah, it was one of the things that kind of gets lost with the PDF. But I looked at the book, I was like, oh, that's really kind of a nice style. Were there any of? I guess so. You got the element of this sort of cycloptic creatures, the Koltak from Crawl. I really like the idea of that sort of tree. I'm trying to remember. Like it had like that sort of an eye. I skip down to it. What was it called in the Elven sort of village or town in the labyrinth?
Oh yeah, the I forget the name of the tree, but it's
a really neat idea. And as soon as I read it, I started thinking of how to make the tree like this big element. I had this whole idea of Ilex, of how Silveraxe, the tower being this sort of chaos center, and then it's sort of offset, or at least the balance that was held before was having the tree, the Ilex, kind of as a law center, sort of holding it in check. And now through his ritual, he's kind of thrown the balance out. And in my mind, I had this idea of them having some kind of climactic battle as he tries to sort of get to the tree and burn it down, or otherwise. I mean, a living tree, I guess you can't really burn it, even though it seems very cinematic. But otherwise, chop it down, get rid of it, destroy it in some way. Magical fire, I'll just say it's magical tree-consuming fire that he gets. But was there any? Yeah, was there any inspiration for that? It just really spoke to me, I guess. Is sort of.
I hadn't tied the two together like you didn't make that connection, but certainly now I want to take credit for that for sure.
Please do. But was there any? Did it come from any kind of media? I mean, obviously, elves and trees kind of go together, but I felt like this had a little bit of a different personality than just kind of.
I think of the Deku tree from Legend of Zelda, like Ocarina of Time, like the big tree that's sort of like the patron they sort of worship.
Yeah, it's cool. We got another question from Jack Hole. Hey, Jack Hole. I like NPCs to give vague, small town directions, like you go down this road and turn left, where Diga used to live before she married and moved to the city. Yeah, there was a whole Saturday Night Live sketch where they would do guys from New England giving directions, and they're all these kind of crazy directions, like turn left at the garage, the old gas station that burned down. It was stuff that like nobody outside there could actually use. And then finally someone would win it when they would just say, you can't get there from here. I think that was the name of the show. It was called You Can't Get There From Here. And it was just like they'd be running down these weird, go from Boston to Providence, and they'd run those weird directions, and finally someone would go, you can't get there from here. And then they would win. That's exactly what that makes me think of. I totally agree with the small town. I feel like most of my NPCs, unless there's really learned or specifically cosmopolitan, don't really know much beyond a day or maybe a half day's radius of wherever they live, because there's just no reason to. they never go there. And your factions kind of have that vibe because they are sort of far enough distant away from each other on the map, and there's not that much overlap in the random encounter tables where you're going to have like the dwarves showing up in the labyrinth with the elves, or the Kolthak showing up somewhere where they kind of don't belong.
Yeah, for the most part, they are all pretty self-involved, and they don't like to branch out, and they like kind of stay close to where they're central. But again, the DM could do whatever they want. They can.
Oh yeah, of course. Nothing says, how did you decide how many / how powerful magic items to put in the module? Obviously, there are way too many magic items of some playstyles, too few for others. So what was your balancing mechanism for magic stuff?
That was hard to do, but I took the BX book, and when I was populating the dungeons, I kind of used the random generator that'd be like, all right, if it comes up on the dice, and I did this for the whole book, where I would see how often magic items would come up or how often treasure would get dropped. And I just kind of let the dice decide, and then I would like reel it in or add a few others and balance it around. But it seemed like the dice mechanics for generating how often magic items should appear, it seemed to work okay.
Yeah, and plus that kind of style, they do put a fair amount of stuff in there with the understanding that very few parties are going to be able to find everything. Right? One party's going to go through and they're going to find the plate mail +2, but they're going to miss all the other stuff. Another party may find the short bow +1, leather, whatever, a couple other things. It would take a really extensive, I feel like, detail-oriented, just specific party that's just hell-bent determined, and you have some stuff that's hidden behind some pretty tough puzzles to be able to get to everything.
And then you're going to have random encounters, happening pretty frequently. So the longer they stay, it would be almost impossible for somebody to get everything, or a party to acquire.
Right. And then I noticed there is no big clerical presence. So for a low-level party, a lot of those times, those guys dying, they're not getting. I don't even know where the nearest place to even beg for a resurrection would be. It doesn't seem like there's anywhere in that valley.
Not really.
Was that intentional, or do you play kind of a low? Because I tend to play that same way.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine that every party that plays through would survive. I feel like, and not that I wanted to have it just be like a grinder. I figure that it should be challenging, and they should rely on their own party instead of like handouts from their patron cleric to give them potions and whatnot.
Absolutely. I always feel like I don't know why, it's maybe the one thing from role playing is I just never really got on board with having it being easy to resurrect somebody. I feel like that's like the one time special, as opposed to we're just going to drag them back to the temple, and like, even though the prices aren't necessarily low, at a certain point, I think my party, they're level 2 and they're already like drowning in gold. In kind of like classical temples, they could resurrect each other like just for fun. Like they'll stand out in the courtyard, stab each other, and then drag them and resurrect them to do it again. So I like to keep it very, make them want to kind of hold on to the characters they have. Raid LC, Raid LC says, any author / illustrator peers or works in the OSR that you really like? Your Kickstarter immediately screamed classic D&D to me when I saw it, more than most others I saw in this zine quest. I always want to say, I don't know which one's proper. I guess magazine. You say zine quest or zine quest?
Zine.
Okay, in the zine quest. So anybody else that you?
There are a bunch of artists that I really admire, and now a lot of their names are escaping me. But one who works a lot with the old school essentials and more contemporary OSR stuff is a painter, and he also does. He works in ink. His name's Peter Mullen. I absolutely love. Actually, I have the old school essentials.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I absolutely love his work. I don't think my art is anything like his, but I think he's my hero.
Yeah. And did he just do that, or does he do some of the other stuff in OSC?
He works, I think, in Dungeon Call Classics. I think he's
okay. Yeah, they have some really distinctive art.
Yeah,
art too. Absolutely. What is your OSR game of choice? What do you run your home game in?
It's Old School Essentials.
Old School Essentials.
Yeah.
Have you played a DCC?
I haven't. No, I never opened that book yet.
Jacob Marks is all about your man Peter Mullen, one of his favorites.
Arrow Lotus is another
Arrow
one.
Lotus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to see that he's still active. I think he still does art
He
for some
is.
projects,
Yeah,
which is
absolutely. Yeah, he's
really cool.
doing some more contemporary. Greg Giuseppe, he's a creator who's does a lot of the mega dungeons. I think for DCC, or maybe it's Labyrinth Lord. He did Borrow Maze. I think Errol
Cool.
Ernest did the cover for that.
All right.
Yeah, beautiful stuff.
Yeah, Jacob Marks he's got working on DCC module and then Dying Earth stuff. Oh, really cool. Yeah, I'll have to check him out. I have the DCC rulebook, but I always just go back to BX or OSC. Though I tend to just go back to BX because I know the rulebook so well. I know people adore OSC for the structure, but I don't know. I'm like, my brain just works. I just kind of know, like, okay, I know if it's in the basic, I know if it's in the expert, I kind of know where it is. So I just tend to
Right.
have them, and I don't have a printed out version of OSC to reference. Even though I play online, I have a binder, because the original basic expert came with the 3-hole punch, and I actually have one that has got the holes punched in. I have it in a binder, so I just open up my binder, flip around, like find the page.
I've got those books also. Unfortunately, I think my expert has some, like, the binding holes, or it won't stay in a binder.
I had to put some, ended up with 2 copies. And so one of the ones I looked at was more beaten than the other one. I said, okay, I'll put like those old, I hadn't used since like middle school, like the ring protectors, the little, like you could get them at home, like Office Depot, that like the little stickers you could put on the page to kind of reinforce where. Yeah. So I like went through and like reinforced all the rings. It was great. Like all I needed is, like, unfortunately my binder's not a Trapper Keeper. Otherwise it would have been like a full thing back to my full
that
circle
might be
back to my
the
youth.
greatest travesty of our age is we don't still have Trapper Keepers.
God, but the plastic, the impact of the plastics alone on a Trapper Keeper we must have set the planet back about 200 years just in Trapper Keepers. Those things were like, they had like plush and like just seemed like, man, just overkill.
Yeah.
So, what do you got on this on this new module? Do you have how far along in the process?
I'm currently working on the cover, which is going to be another painted cover.
Oh, nice.
The first one was digitally painted, and I'm also going to be doing digitally. I did play with the idea of doing it in oils, but I kind of want to have a little bit more control, and I'm not really I'm not very confident with the oils yet. So working in digital for the cover. It's going to be a wraparound. And and I've got the main dungeon map. There'll be like one big dungeon. Also, the mapping style is going to be a little bit different.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It'll still be very readable, but it'll be I'm using isometric view to look at the dungeon.
Oh, nice. Yeah. What's the reason behind that choice? Anything in particular?
I just wanted to try it out, and I started like making the dungeon. I actually started with the dungeon was the first thing I made for this module, and I started playing with adding rooms and staircases and doors. And
I mean, I do like some of the stuff that you can get with the isometric view, because you can really kind of relationships, especially if you're going to build a dungeon that is kind of multi-level.
And that is, where it's not like kind of show that 1, 2, 3. This one will feel kind of maze-like, where you're not sure which floor is which.
Nice. Do you have sort of a theme for this one? If we could say the Silveraxe, at least in terms of the central conspiracy, is sort of undead centric, is there?
I do have a theme. Yeah. I don't want to give too much away as to the villain, but it'll take place in kind of canyon lands.
Ooh.
Like, think Utah, like southwest Utah.
Nice. So it kind of makes sense from that, because I feel like with your mapping style from this game and then doing a whole bunch of canyons and whatever, the way you would your contour drawing wrist would get a little sore.
I'm still on the fence if it's going to be like that map, but it'll be I think it's smaller in scope. Yeah, without giving too much away.
Oh, how big? How big are we, when you say kind of smaller? How small?
I think it'll be about 4 or 5 dungeons, and probably I think Silveraxe was around 80 pages. I can't remember the page.
Oh, I was just thinking in terms of actual not so much the book, but the actual map. So because I was thinking, like you were saying, that the map was going to be smaller.
Yeah, the map will be smaller. It will probably be take place all within like 40 square miles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. They got another comment in here. Back to Greg Gillespie. Has all of his mega dungeons in the same area. Cool to hear your next project can work alongside the first.
Yeah, it'll be in a different region, but it'll still kind of take place in the same universe.
Would you ever put out kind of a settings book if people wanted to know
I was
more
thinking
about
that too. Yeah, and I have planned 3, Silveraxe being the first one, and this next one being the second one. I've got one that
like in a trilogy, or like Against the Giant?
like a trilogy, but it won't. It'll be like a.
You're not going to chain them together though, so like
No, they won't be chained. They'll just be like they'll each have their own like themed covers, and they'll feel like they're part of a set. And I might do like a hardcover release at the end.
oh, that would be nice. Though the one thing I like about this kind of binding is it's easy to sort of lay flat and stuff.
Yeah,
I always feel bad when I hit those, and I already it didn't even take that long when my 5th edition player's handbook totally fell apart. But you know, the time you open up a hardcover book and you hear all the creaking and cracking, and it's like,
I know.
no, am I destroying it? Is it already coming undone?
Yeah, they will all be staple bound. All the ones.
Yeah, nice. Did you get any? So the old school centers, I know that everything you can use, it's all kind of open source. I know you have noticed you have the open gaming license in the back. Did they obviously, other than the kind of adapting somewhat your grubworms, did you reach out to them for anything? Did you just do your thing?
No,
just happen to use theirs?
I did send it to Gavin to review, and nothing came back as any flags. So
yeah, because I think the whole, if I remember, the whole genesis was to try to get BX into sort of a public domain sort of spot, right, where you could use it and not run afoul of the OGL, which is probably really I would say, other than, people I think as playing and using it, the organizational value, yeah, it's tremendous, but being able to then have this version of BX that's really probably as close to BX as you're going to get without raising copyright flags, and now you have this version that anybody can take and utilize for their commercial works, is probably the real biggest impact of OSE.
Yeah,
at least from a creator standpoint, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, and I presume that you're going to OSE is going to be for the next one as well.
Yeah,
would you think about? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, it would definitely be OSE. I am, however, going to branch out into because they released they brought in elements from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
I saw that. I haven't read it yet, but I've seen it. What do you think about it? Have you looked through it?
It's neat. They didn't change the rules at all. What they did is they incorporated more player character choices. Like you can have half orcs, or you can have half elves, or you can have classes. Like you can now have a barbarian or a paladin instead of just cleric fighter, the standard array.
But they kind of kept it in the BX style, right? Sort of like they
didn't change. They didn't change the rules any, which is really nice. They just added more monsters and more, I think, spells and treasure and that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Nice. Let's see. Raid LC, following up his other comments, said OSE is so fantastic, especially for new people that don't RP much. That's our go-to with new players. Yeah. I mean, look, you can't argue with the fact that it's just very well done without changing the game much. Mm-hmm. I mean, some of the retro clones have done a great job being additive. Like, even though I don't feel like I can promote it much, I really like what Lamentations of the Flame Princess did as far as using BX as a chassis and kind of and putting some really interesting sort of homebrew stuff in there. But OSE is it's really nice, and like some of the other ones are fun, like Troika.
I haven't read Troika, but I love the art.
The art is great. It's totally like, I'm not usually a kind of a big gonzo. I don't know. I just like my fantasy more toned down. But for me, for like a one shot or just kind of have some fun, it kind of reminds me of if you sort of merged like old school role playing with like Toon or something, because you got like all these weird like tropes. like I played it on a guy Terrence invited me to play their one shot on their stream, and as we were kind of rolling up characters, it became clear that one of the characters was like the rhino from like the old Robin Hood Disney cartoon that literally had like a tiny helmet, and like you're reading it and you're suddenly like, wait a minute, that's just like the Rhino Guards from the old Sherlock Holmes cartoon. Like that was amazing. It. Yeah. So there's all these little touches in there that are like a lot of fun. It probably wouldn't be what I'd want to play if I wanted like a 6 months or whatever, like a real living campaign. But for just having some just kind of off the wall sort of just crazy fun.
Yeah, I want to get that just to read. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, and they're I mean, there's some interesting things in the way they do skills, or not skills, but kind of the way they do their rolls. So they do like a 2d6 based roll. Definitely does some interesting stuff. I always love reading I love reading modules. I really enjoyed reading yours. I love reading rule books to see everyone, all the kind of new and interesting things that folks do. Is there anything else going on? I know you said you do like comics and other things. You want to, and feel free to put in the chat any kind of links if you have anything you want to share. Like what other like non RPG stuff are you got going on these days?
Attending a lot of Comic Cons, so I've got tabling at a few Comic Cons. Fingers crossed as long as they don't get closed down, because I am in Arkansas, and Arkansas has a really low vaccination rate, so there's a chance that a lot of the future conventions here won't happen.
I see. Are the because how is their feeling? I don't want to get all like COVID, but like I went to like a gaming convention. I'm in New York City. I'm in Brooklyn. I went to a gaming convention last weekend in Manhattan, and we had to show proof of vaccination to get in.
Oh, no, they don't do that here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it made me feel better. I'm vaccinated. My wife is vaccinated, but my daughter is only 7, so she can't get vaccinated. So I felt a little bit like, should I go? Should I not go? Right. So it's always that kind of push and pull. Did you do any of the cons virtually over the last COVID year?
No, I haven't. And I also was thinking about attending one virtually also, but this is all kind of in person because, I'm trying to sell the comics and
drop some links to your comics, throw them in there. I don't know. I don't think I know what they are.
Please. I haven't. We ran a Kickstarter which didn't quite work out for one of our comics called Curses, so I don't have the links for those yet. But soon on my website,
drop the link to your website for sure in there, and I'll also add it to the show notes so that folks. I know at least in different iterations of like YouTube, I think people can watch this later with the chat on, but I don't know how that works for links and things. So I'll grab it out and also put it in.
How do you do this? How do you add?
Let's see. There should be, if you're looking at that chat window, there should be at the bottom a box that says type a message, and then you should just be able to paste your link in there. There's a private chat that's just for us, on the inside. You could send it to me that way, and I will paste it in.
That will do.
Maybe that'll work. Yeah, this restream thing is great for doing these, but I unfortunately don't have good knowledge of what the interviewee side is. Oh, Gelatin Cubans. Okay, so it's under your same umbrella, because didn't you published this by Gelatin? Okay.
Yeah, right. I didn't. Since I'm kind of self-publishing this, I didn't have a self-publishing like moniker or business. So, but this year I kind of decided, I'll just put it under that name. So
yeah, it makes sense. What is your comic about, by the way?
Curses is a comedy. It's about a small town that kind of gets overrun by mummies, and these two women are trying to solve the mystery, kind of like Scooby-Doo meets Clerks. Yeah.
Nice. Are they actual mummies, or
they're actually like Egyptian mummies? And at first it's sort of absurd, but yeah, my buddy writes it. He writes a lot of the jokes based on his real life, which is kind of ridiculous and funny. So he's got a really good sense of humor. Not
mummies though. There's nothing. He doesn't have experience with mummies in real life. Okay.
Yeah, that was actually my dumb idea.
No, I think it sounds hilarious. Anything else you got going on? We can wrap it up. Questions, chat.
Not yet. Nothing yet that I can share. Actually, I'm working on the art for another rule set that my buddy Reese Surlis is putting out. It's called Crowns. It's kind of an OSR sort of rule set, but I'm doing all the art for that book. And that will be coming out December, I believe.
Oh, nice. Any particular angle on everyone thinking like Troika is kind of gonzo, or if this is sort of domains or whatever, like this Crowns, is it working like the name seems to imply it's sort of Crowns and sort of social climbing kind of stuff?
It's more it's grounded in like a sword and sorcery sort of like just a human sort of, how like most rule sets have like a baked in setting, and this one pretty much just humans kind of deal. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, before I forget, I really appreciate you putting some like Hexed sort of mechanic sort of things in there, because obviously my channel, to the extent that people know it at all, is mostly known for Hex stuff, which seems to confuse the heck out of people, or just people just don't know. So, knowing, I feel like that your audience, obviously this is a Hex crawl, was going to get in there and maybe potentially need some guidance on the hex crawl, and the fact that you put it in the book as opposed to not, I thought was a really nice touch, and really, good stuff there too, because it seems to be that for a lot of people it's like the black box, like like, okay, the dungeon's fairly straightforward, you step outside and suddenly you're like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, you just kind of figure it out. No, but yeah, I was referencing the Darlene map from the Greyhawk setting, and on their map they had the numbers line up in that strange angle. I thought that was kind of a
but I think you also had some but just even besides that, I think you put in what am I thinking of here? Let me flip open the book, and I can say like the weather and the travel considerations, like those things I thought were really helpful for the GM that might get into it and suddenly not really get it, and I really like a lot of rules. I also did recently the Into the Wild and Weird, I think it's called, and they have some great rules also for doing things like the hunting and foraging and getting water and stuff that I'd usually kind of hand. I mean, most of my, it's funny too, because I was thinking about, they had all these rules about that I definitely want to incorporate on not only the hunting, but then prepping the animal once you've killed it and brought it to camp. Like you can spend different amounts of time butchering it, essentially, that are more effective or less effective, and how much meat you get out of it. Really wonderful stuff. Like I don't know if it's just my parties the way I've always played. Like we've always just brought all the supplies we needed, so it's never been a case of folks having to go out and hunt because they're like, we're out of rations, we're turning around and we're going home, as opposed to let's live off the land kind of thing. But that kind of guidance is great because they may have bought this and not really understand what they need, and at least you give them some kind of digest version. They can always go get more stuff, but just being able to have something that's there with your book, that they can show is great. And we got some comments. The Raid LC says a Silveraxe comic would be great. Been on comics for a while, but Medieval Spawn and Witchblade were favorites of mine way back when. Would you ever think about converting it to making sort of a comic about?
Yeah, there's always a possibility. Comics, they definitely take a long time to do, but it's something I would consider doing for sure.
Raid LC adds, might get back in for something with your art style that is D&D like. Well, look at that. Yeah, I really do like the art. And Bill Ray, hey Bill, says, I love the weather tables.
Oh, Slayer, that little mini comic. That one was, I kind of wanted to do like a fantasy, just a exercise, but I was sick in bed. I had like a really bad fever, and I wrote script while I was in bed with the fever, and it's just ridiculous. It's just really, really fun, but definitely was thinking about wanting to play D&D.
Nice. All right, chat. We're going to be wrapping up here because I've already kept the man too long. So last questions for Jacob. Get him in now or forever. Hold your peace. I will not give you his Twitter identity. You will not be able to contact him in any other way. He's vanishing into the mists.
I'm going back into my hole until the done.
But I really appreciate it. I think I've said it a couple times. Really appreciate you coming on. Short notice, and I loved reading the book, and I just was overjoyed that you were willing to send it to me. So
absolutely,
thank you again.
The next one when it.
Please do, and let me know when it's coming. It's coming out on Kickstarter. I'm happy to we could do another. Once you get closer to things, we can have another interview where you can tell us more about that when it's finalized.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd love to come on before it. It'll be first week of February, like the day 1 of February when Zine Quest is going on. That'll be when we launch on Kickstarter for that. So,
all right. Jackal says, thanks for your time. They will be picking this up. Nice.
Awesome. Thank you.
And then let's see. Jacob Mark says, also appreciate the Nausicaa manga in the background. That's some keen eyes back there. I would not have even have noticed.
It's one of the best comics of all time. Yeah,
I've been running my daughter through the movies, like the Nausicaa and Porco Rosso and all the different. She's so resistant when I first start. She looks at them and they look a little bit older, especially some of the older ones, and she's like, Porco Rosso, what does that mean? I'm like, I think it means like red pigs. It's like, and he's flying a plane. And he's got like a handlebar mustache. But then when we get into it, she's all about it. Yeah, I'd love to get her into some of the manga too, but she's a little bit young. I feel like for some of that stuff. She's still happy with like Dogman and the Babysitters Club. So I'm happy to keep her there for a bit longer before I throw her in the deeper ends. All right, everybody. I am going to wrap this up. Jacob, thanks again so much. Please, keep in touch. Let me know. Let know what's going on. Happy to spread the word about anything that's upcoming
Awesome.
any way I can. Any other links you can tell you what, rather than go through the private chat, just DM me any links and I
Sure.
will add them to the show notes, and hopefully we'll keep in touch, and really looking forward to see what's coming next with that next zine quest. But have a great rest of your afternoon, everybody. Thanks. I will a quick programming note before I go. So tomorrow I will be doing the OSR Reddit read, where I just basically go through and read through what's kind of trending on the OSR subreddit. I am starting a new job next week. Don't know what my hours are going to be like, so I might take a break from the daily streams until I can figure out sort of what I could do for daily streams if my workload allows it. Yada yada yada. So I will try to keep everyone informed of that. But yeah, have a great day. Jacob, thanks again. I will see you around. Cheers, everybody. Ciao.